Welcome everybody to another Indie Dev Showcase here on the channel. Each week I spotlight the many indie games we play for our Wednesday night streams. If you'd like to submit a game for a future one, please get in touch. All the games shown for today are either demos from festivals, press key submissions, or just from the massive backlog of games that I have. And we are starting with the Guild of Ascension. Now, this game is out now, but we played this as a demo during the festival. And this is a tactical RPG roguelike style game, which definitely draws elements from kind of the action strategy of something like Valkyria Chronicles. So, the hook of this one is that this is a turn-based game where you control two characters. So you have a team of two. You go from one character to the other during a turn. Now, if you look in the upper left-hand corner, you see a bar. And that bar represents all your available time you have during a turn, and you can perform actions provided that you still have meter. When the meter runs out, you go to the next character and then the enemies go. After each battle, you choose from rewards which you can then apply to either character, and then of course you choose your next destination on the node-based system. So what I liked about this game from a concept point of view was that I really do enjoy games that try to mix that real-time tactical nature of Valkyria Chronicles. I don't think we've seen enough games really do that. And this one definitely seems to be trying to do things differently. You have elements such as the environment affecting how characters move and behave. Positioning is a major point. As you can see, if a character or if your ranged character is facing an enemy while it's the other character's turn, they'll just take little pot shots at them. Enemies have different behaviors and so on. Now, the one thing that we didn't get to really see during this demo play is that there is a long-term persistence system of getting new gear and upgrades from your town/home base. And I am kind of curious, or I was concerned about how far or how much variance there is going to be on a per run basis, as each character has their own defined set of skills. But I was definitely enjoying the Guild of Ascension, and I would say if you are a fan of tactical strategy games, and especially roguelike design, then give this one a check and see what you think, because I think it does do things in a unique way. For our next game, this is Draft of Darkness, and this is played from a demo build, but the game is on early access, and what you see probably doesn't represent the current version of it. But this is a kind of what if Slay the Spire combined with survival horror. You play as a survivor who is trapped in the post-apocalypse, and you are trying to escape where all manner of crazy monsters, evil other survivors, and strange things are getting in your way. So for this one, the card mechanics are loot based. As you find new gear and you pull into your character, it will change what cards you have available. Better gear means better cards, and of course a variety of gear will affect what options that you have. Now, unlike games like Slay the Spire, Monster Train, and so on, it uses an active time system, as opposed to just being purely turn-based. When the yellow bar fills under a character's stats, they get to have their turn, and your actions are limited based on your energy, which is the green bar in the middle. And you have ways of impacting those bars, giving you more or less, and of course affecting the enemies as well. Now, the world itself, of course, is procedurally generated, and you're going to have to figure out where to go and what events to interact with on any given run. Now, the big thing that I like about Draft of Darkness, besides the horror aesthetic and tone, is that it's more of a contemporary deck builder as opposed to being fantasy or sci-fi base. Now, from the demo that we played, I didn't really get too much of a sense of the larger narrative itself, As in, are we going to be fighting some crazy monsters? Are we going to ever get out of the apartments? And I'm sure those answers will probably or have been given in the version that's available on Early Access. In terms of the gameplay itself, it doesn't really do anything, I would say, too unique with the formula. If you've played, again, any of the deck-building roguelikes that we've talked about plenty of times here on the channel, Draft of Darkness doesn't really do anything that completely stands out in those ways, but it is just a different style of it. And if you aren't tired of deck-building roguelikes, I would say give this one a check just to see if it does speak to you or not. For our next game, we have The Last Stand Aftermath, another demo we play from the festivals. So the actual Last Stand franchise is kind of like a casual, I think, mobile style series. But with Aftermath, the developers are trying to go big with an action roguelite style design. It is, of course, the post-zombie apocalypse. You play as a survivor who is being sent out after being infected, with the goal to try and make things better for the remaining survivors. And to do that, you are going to go on a block-by-block, city-by-city exploration, trying to find resources and make progress that will then hopefully aid the other survivors after your untimely passing. So the game itself is played very much like an action RPG style. Each area is procedurally generated with resources that are going to be dependent on the area you explore, such as finding a supermarket for more food, gas stations for, gasoline, and you get the picture. Now, the challenge of the game is that you are already infected with the virus, and you can see kind of like the purple growing bar in the bottom right. When the bar completely fills up a notch of health, you will mutate, gaining a powerful perk but lowering your max health. Your run ends when you are either killed or you get turned into a zombie, with progression and things unlocked carrying over to whoever you choose to play next. So the game definitely has some interesting aspects to it. This is definitely more of the you are not really able to fight like 27 zombies on your own kind of gameplay, and your best bet is to sneak around to grab resources or to try and bait one at a time. Now, with that said, I don't know if The Last Stand Aftermath is really doing anything wholly original for this kind of design. And it does have that kind of, emptiness to the areas with the procedural generation. But with that said, it did have some good gameplay. I do like the idea of kind of this action roguelike zombie apocalypse. I know we've seen, I think, a few of those in the last few years, but this one definitely is more action than it is RPG. And I would say if you are interested in this kind of gameplay, definitely give it a check when it's released, I believe later in November. With that said, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we have 3 more games we'll get for this week's Spotlight. And as always, if you're interested in my thoughts on design, then feel free to check these out. For entry-level students, we have 20 essential games to study, and then the Game Design Deep Dive series that takes an extensive look at different genres, with free-to-play coming in 2022. Now up, we have In My Shadow. This was played with a press key, and the footage you're seeing is taken from the demo, but we did play the full version of it on stream a little while later. So, this is an emotionally driven puzzle platformer, where we are reliving this woman's painful memories of childhood and kind of what happened to the falling out between her and the rest of her family through the guise of, puzzle platforming. So each level is about manipulating the objects you see in the foreground in order to change their shadows in the background, which in turn you're going to use for, of course, platforming. Now, the challenge of the game is that you have a limitation as to how you can manipulate the objects, as well as hazards that are introduced. The platforming itself is on the basic side, and I think that's kind of one of the things that hurts in my shadow a little bit. That you have essentially one jump height, and if you are really good at platforming based gameplay, it does help you kind of get around some of the challenges, but because of the limitations of what you're able to do, it doesn't allow you to do too much in terms of improvisation. And your character, you can't change the shadows once your character is in play. In order to maneuver everything around again, you're going to have to restart the puzzle. The game introduces new elements and mechanics, specifically in terms of obstacles for you to avoid. And while the game, I think, has an interesting look to it, it doesn't, I think, really mesh, the story with the gameplay. Every time you beat a level, you get another little cutscene detailing possibly up to some, very tragic memory of this woman's life, but none of that is really referenced or really even done at all in the gameplay itself. So, if you are looking for another emotionally driven game, I would say check out In My Shadow, but if basic puzzle platforming doesn't interest you, then I don't think this game is going to work for you. For our next game, we have Hidden Deep. This was another demo that we played, and there's definitely potential here, but it also felt like the game was getting in the way of that. So our concept is, this is, Prince of Persia meets The Thing. You play as a team that's sent to investigate the mysterious disappearance of an entire research facility deep underground. And of course, when you know it, there's evil creatures, destruction, and a whole lot of hell that is going on. So, the big thing about this game, for one thing, it does feature or will feature local and remote co-op that was not in this demo build. But the game is designed around a lot in terms of movement and using of tools in order to make your way around. You'll have grappling hooks, you can set up things to search for mining importance or rocks that you can research, and the game wants to really be kind of like that more methodical adventure platforming of something like Prince of Persia, Out of This World, and so on. My big problem with this game, it felt very clunky to play. With all the different tools you have access to, it means you have different controls and different UI elements you're going to have to make use of at any given time. And I think one of the big things for this game would be definitely streamlining the UI. Because if it becomes too cumbersome and too slow paced, it's going to kill any momentum of exploration. Combat is on the annoying side as well, with limited ammo, but throwing enemies and even having them spawn in to cause trouble as well. And I think there is certainly potential here, and if the co-op can really come in, I think this could be a fascinating game for co-op play, considering the focus on tools and exploration, as opposed to just full-on run-and-gun shooting. But the game definitely has, I think, a long way to go before it reaches that point. But if you're looking for something that is definitely of a slower build-up of horror and platforming, I would say keep an eye on this one, but I'm hoping that we do see improvements as it gets closer to release. For our final game of the showcase this week, this is Oddventure. This is an RPG told through a very kiddie and, happy-go-lucky story with some potentially seriously dark overtones over the entire proceedings. You play as a sister to a troublesome boy who gets lost in the woods one day, and she stumbles across a very unique and weird world. And from there, she's going to decide how she will behave and respond to things, which will affect everything that goes around it. So the gameplay itself is definitely a mix of classic RPG gameplay with that kind of darker morality of something like Undertale. The world itself is linear, as you'll look for clues, puzzles, new gear, and so on, with combat coming up and you're free to decide how you behave and respond to enemies. You can fight them, you can use emotional manipulation, and how you decide this will greatly affect what is going to happen with the story. So this is one of those games that from the demo, it's definitely intriguing in terms of what we're going to be seeing, but it also means that we didn't get a chance to see just how crazy this game is going to go. But from the footage that we did manage to get through, it's looking like this is not going to be a game you want to play with your kids anywhere nearby. So definitely looking forward to this one. Again, there's not really a lot to talk about gameplay wise, at least from what we saw of it on stream. But if you are looking for a darker RPG experience, one that really is going to push in terms of, what can we get away with these cute graphics, then definitely give Oddventure a look. But again, if you're not into that kind of thing, this game could go a little too far, though it is a little hard to say. But with that said, we're going to wrap up this week's showcase here. I'd like to thank all the games that we had a chance to play. You'll find links to all the information down in the description. And again, if you'd like to submit a game for a future piece, please get in touch. Come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where we are in the science of games. And be sure to check out our Discord and Patreon link down below. But until next time, take care.